Eagle 95.1 WUPN Paradise, Sault Ste. Marie.
It's time for The Game. Eagle 95.1 proudly brings you The Game, the Twin Sault's only regional and national sports show. For the next hour, we'll get an in-depth look at sports in the Eastern Upper Peninsula and Algoma region and hear from coaches and players involved in The Game. Now, let's join Scott Nason at the Wicked Sister on Ashman Street in downtown Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan for tonight's broadcast of The Game on Eagle 95.1.
Time to play the game. Time to play the game!
Glorious! No, I won't give in till I'm victorious. And I will defend.
Greetings and salutations and welcome to The Game on this Monday, April 23rd, 2018. My name is Scott Nason, broadcasting from the studios of Eagle 95.1 FM, WUPN in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, on this beautiful spring-like Monday evening in the Twin Saults. When we last joined you on The Game, we were at the Wicked Sister last Monday night talking about winter storm warnings, advisories, snow days. Well, it has been a beautiful week of weather ever since then. After a very nice weekend, we are in the spring mood here on The Game. We'll be joined by Dave McKeag, host of The Game Sports Show from Boston Pizza on Thursday nights and Sports Center Bar and Grill on Wednesday night. Dave's going to talk about the Sioux Greyhounds, the Northern Ontario Junior Hockey League, along with the Toronto sports scene. And we'll be joined by Butch Davis from the Telegram News and Butch on Sports later on, as Butch will get us up to date on what's going on the Detroit sports front. We'll also talk about the NHL playoffs, NBA playoffs, and more on our roundtable discussion. And host of The Game is the Wicked Sister, and they have a spring celebration dinner going on this Thursday with Brewery Vivant. They still have a few tickets available. $40 gets you into this limited, I should say exclusive affair. I don't know if exclusive is the right term. It's a very nice dinner with some great beverages in a great atmosphere. 4-course meal. They also have 8 different brews available. So head on down to the Wicked Sister to talk to Kathy or Scott, and they will certainly hook you up. Before we talk to Dave, let's talk about the world of local sports. Well, most of the local high school sports were canceled this past week due to the weather. As a matter of fact, anything locally this week is still pretty much washed out, because looking at the fields throughout the Eastern Upper Peninsula and the tracks, many of them still have snow. As a matter of fact, I drove by Sioux High's baseball and softball field, and despite all this nice weather and grass in many areas, those fields are still have a lot of snow on them, and it's going to take at least a week, probably even more, to have those fields playable. You will see, I would assume, some games next week. We'll probably see track meets next week due to the weather, but pretty much anything this week locally is canceled as far as high school sports, high school baseball, high school softball, and high school track. But there were a couple events that happened last week. An indoor meet happened last Thursday, an Eastern Upper Peninsula Conference track meet at Lake Superior State University, as the Brimley Bays won the boys and girls meet. Pickford finished second for the boys, while Newberry was third. Austin Plotkin took first for the Bays in the 3,200 for Brimley. Nick Eddington won first in the high jump and the long jump. Cedarville's Thomas Bone won the 800 and 1,600 races. Newberry's Josh Slott won the 55 hurdles. Newberry's Jalen James won the 200, and Richard Nallett won the 400. Scout Bigger of Engadine won the shot put, along with Jared Daly, also of Engadine, winning the 55 dash. Brimley, as I mentioned, won the girls' meet. Pickford was second and Cedarville third. Kendra Carrick of Brimley won the 3,200-meter race. Taylor Apolka first in the 55 hurdles and long jump for Pickford. Meredith Emily of Cedarville was first in the high jump and 800. Other Trojans finishing first were Caroline Friel in the 400 and Cassidy Barr in the 1600. And Katie Rowhaley of Newberry won the 55 dash and Megan Grigg the 200. That's the only track meet that we received results of. Now, there were a couple baseball games played. Yes, the baseball season finally got underway for the Sioux High Blue Devils as they were down in Alma. The first time they actually got to get outside on the field, and then you have to play a couple games. Well, Sioux High lost both games by a score of 8-6 and 3-2. In game one, they had 9 different players get hits. Hunter Conisett and Logan Bailey had 2 hits each for Sioux High in game one. And Shane Thompson was 2 of 4 in game 2 for the Blue Devils, as Sioux High was scheduled to play at home against Alpena on Thursday. That one obviously not going to happen. The Rudyard Bulldogs baseball team went 2-2 at the Hanover Horton Tourney this past weekend. And that's pretty much it as far as high school baseball and softball. Lots of games canceled. Look at today's schedule. Rudyard at Rogers City. Baseball and softball canceled. I was scheduled to be down in St. Ignace for Brimley and St. Ignace softball canceled. Pickford at Harbor Springs canceled. Sioux High's soccer game at Alpena canceled. As well as, well, pretty much throughout the week, events canceled across the Eastern Upper Peninsula. But the good news is that with this warm weather and dry weather, I would expect that probably by the middle of next week, we will see baseball and softball games being played. And I think probably even the end of this week, possibly early next week, we'll see some track meets. The best thing to do if you have athletes participating, check with the schools, check with the schedule, and we'll do our best to keep you up to date on the local sports scene, as we always do here on The Game. Speaking of The Game, you can hear us online at the podcast page, thegamesportshow.podbean.com, or go directly to our website, thegamesportshow.com. You can also find other selected editions of The Game. We mentioned earlier Dave McKegg's show Wednesday night from Sports Center Bar and Grill, and Thursday night from Boston Pizza. We put some other sports-related materials on the podcast page, including Butch Davis and his show, Butch on Sports. He does 2 to 3 different editions a week as well. I'm on ESPN Blacksburg with our good friend Paul Van Wagner. We put the weekly segments up on there, thegamesportshow.podbean.com. We're going to talk more about this with Dave McKegg coming up in a little while, but the Sioux Greyhounds up 2-0 in their best-of-7 Western Conference final against the Kitchener Rangers, as they had a couple games at the SR Center this weekend. The Greyhounds, with .2 seconds remaining on the clock in Game 1, win Game 1 by the score of 3-2. Connor Timmons took a feed from Taylor Radish and beat Kitchener Rangers goaltender Mario Kalina with .2 seconds on the clock to give the Greyhounds a 3-2 win in Game 1 of the Western Conference Final. Timmons had a pair of goals on the night, while Jack Kopaka had the other goal for the Greyhounds, as Matthew Villalta made 18 saves in net for the Hounds, and they followed up that victory on Friday night by winning on Saturday by the score of 4-2. Boris Kachuk had a pair of goals and assists for the Hounds, and Matthew Villalta made 34 saves as the Sioux Greyhounds have a 2-0 lead over the Kitchener Rangers in the Ontario Hockey League Final, with Game 3 coming up tonight in Kitchener, and Game 4 will be Wednesday night in Kitchener. If there is a Game 5, that one will be at the SR Center on Friday night. So best of luck to the Greyhounds. We'll talk more about the Hounds with Dave McKegg. Well, looking ahead a little bit, of course, the Greyhounds want to get to the Memorial Cup. This year's Memorial Cup will be in Regina, Saskatchewan, starting on May 18th. The other 2 leagues that are in the hunt for a position in the Memorial Cup in the WHL, they're to the semifinal series. Everett and Tri-City tied at 1 game apiece, and Swift Current up on Lethbridge by a 2-0 count. In the Quebec League, I pardon my French, so to speak, but Blainville Brosband up 2-0 against Charlottetown, and Acadie Bathurst up 2-0 on Victoriaville. And, of course, Regina will be one of the teams in the Memorial Cup, and those other ones, we'll see what happens there. Moving on to the NOJHL, well, it looked like when we last met that the Cochrane Crunch might be up against it as they trailed the series against Rayside Balfour 2-0 in the NOJHL Finals. Well, the Cochrane Crunch have rallied, winning the last two games and then winning last night at Rayside by the score of 3-2 as Kyle Herbster, shorthanded mark with just over 6 minutes remaining in regulation, broke a tie as the Crunch now lead Rayside Balfour 3-2 in the NOJHL Final. Game 6 will be up in Cochrane on Tuesday night, and should the Canadians win that game, they would host Game 7 on Thursday at 7 p.m. So it really looked like Rayside was going to cruise in that series, winning the first two games, but you got to give it up to Cochrane, and they are one win away from heading to the Dudley Hewitt Cup. Speaking of the Dudley Hewitt Cup, that'll be on May 1st through the 5th, so that'll start next week in Dryden, Ontario. And we do know 3 of the 4 teams that will be at the Dudley Hewitt Cup. Host Dryden, the Ice Dogs out of the SIJHL. They did win their final against the Thunder Bay North Stars, but Thunder Bay will also be at the Dudley Hewitt Cup. And the Wellington Dukes, the OJHL champion, they defeated Georgetown by a 4-2 count. And so Dryden, Thunder Bay, Wellington, and then either Rayside Balfour or Cochrane will be in the hunt for the Dudley Hewitt Cup. Looking across the region, or I should say across Canada, in the other cups or the regional series that will happen, the Avanet Cup, which features the Manitoba champion against the Saskatchewan champion. Well, of course, everybody knows the Saskatchewan final, they had to play the games despite having the tragedy which happened to Pembroke. It's the Nipawin Hawks and the Estevan Bruins. They are tied 3 games apiece. Game 7 tomorrow night, and the winner of that one will take on the Steinbach Pistons. Steinbach won the Manitoba final by a 4-2 count. So lots of regional championships. Of course, the one we're focused on is the Dudley Hewitt Cup and the RBC Cup this year, which will be going on in British Columbia, Chilliwack, British Columbia to be exact. That'll start on May 12th. One other local sports note, the Lake Superior State University's men and women's golf teams finished 8th on Sunday, ending their season. We're going to take a break here on the game. We come back, we're going to talk to our good friend, Dave McKeag from Sioux, Ontario. Dave is geeked up for Game 6 of the Leafs and Boston Bruins from Air Canada Centre. The Bruins lead the series 3-2. We're going to talk to Dave about, of course, the OHL, the NLJHL, local sports, but then we're going to transition into the NHL playoffs. Lots going on there. The NBA playoffs. Dave's Raptors now in a series against Washington, tied at 2 games apiece. We'll talk about the Blue Jays and just more of the world of sports here on the game on Eagle 95.1.
Get wicked at the Wicked Sister. You'll find the best tasting food for the whole family. Start off with some appetizers like the crab dip, served with warm non-bread strips and soft pretzel bites, or their antibiotic and hormone-free boneless chicken wings with 5 choices of sauces. Entrees include the barbecue pulled pork sandwich, the #1 selling drunken cow burger, or Philly cheesesteaks, and they're on special all day Thursdays. The Wicked Sister also offers a gluten-free menu and catering. Bring the whole family. The Wicked Sister, downtown Ashman Street, open 7 days a week.
The Game Sports Show would like to thank an additional sponsor and additional home to the Game Sports Show, Sports Center Bar and Grill. Sports Center Bar and Grill, located on 624 Wellington Street West, Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Sports Center rated top sports bar for the 2nd year in a row. At Sports Center, enjoy their famous 75-cent wing night along with delicious Molson products on tap, along with a great atmosphere and other great food options available as well. Sports Center Bar and Grill, the Sioux's best sports bar.
Welcome back to the game on Eagle 95.1. Scott Nason broadcasting tonight from the studios on Ashman Street on this absolutely beautiful evening. The clouds have picked up a bit, but still temperatures very mild, very nice compared to where we were last week at this time. And joining us, our next guest, our first guest, I should say, besides my alter ego, is Dave McKeag. Good friend, and also host of the Game Sports Show from Sports Center Bar and Grill on Wednesday nights and Boston Pizza on Thursday night. Dave, you and I were at the Wicked Sister last week looking outside, seeing about 2 feet of snow, and boom, a week later, it's springtime, baby. How you doing, my friend?
Oh, Scotty, I'm doing well, and I hope you're doing well, and hope all the listeners are doing well. This weather is making me more of a happy individual. The sun the last couple days, it was an amazing weekend. I was even able to sit on the back deck and enjoy some sun. That's how nice it was. It's over here in Canada. As soon as it hits over 10 degrees, we are thinking it's summertime over here in 10. And so it's great to see this weather come out. And it's good to see that summer's just right around the corner.
Yeah, it really is, Dave, but we have a lot of winter sports still to talk about, including the Ontario Hockey League, and it was a very successful weekend for the Sioux Greyhounds. As I mentioned earlier during the first segment, the Greyhounds win the first 2 games at the SR Center, a walk-off goal, if you will, on Friday night as the Hounds win that game by the score of 3-2, and then the Hounds back that game up, holding serve in Game 2 as they doubled up the Kitchener Rangers by the score of 4-2, taking a 2-0 lead into tonight's game in Kitchener. Dave, a good start for the Hounds in this series. It's been a couple tough games. The goaltender for Kitchener, Mario Kalina, Sioux Ontario native, has played well, especially in Game 2, that second period. He was absolutely spectacular. Your thoughts on the Hounds Western Conference Final, up 2-0 going into tonight's game in Kitchener?
There's a couple of things I want to bring on. The first thing that you just said moments ago, Mario Kalina, it's well, as I say every time, he's a 100% natural representative, a teammate of mine in the 3-on-3 tournament when he was just a 17-year-old. And I remember when he played on that team, I remember saying this is one of the best goalies I've ever even played with and seen. I see with Mario, he's doing phenomenal. And for Kitchener, he's a big part that Kitchener was only lost 4-2 that game against the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds on the in Game 2 here at the SR Center. And the Hounds, for example, like to bring out is that Game 7 against Owen Sound, and that series in general against Owen Sound has certainly prepped the Hounds, I feel. That first game was quite the nail-biter at the end there that they got scored with .2 left on the clock, I believe was the exact point, and they made it exciting for the fans. It seems like with this series, watching both games, that they're hungrier than what I saw in that Owen Sound series, and that they're digging deep. And Kitchener is not a joke of an opponent at all. Even though they're down 2-0, they can change this series in a matter of 2 games back in Kitchener. They're a very impressive team up front, and obviously in net, I feel they got a very strong goaltender with Mario, who has held them in these first 2 games, I feel. But Kitchener is definitely a team that can bounce back, and it's going to be great for the Hounds to see how they can handle it on the road. As you know, their last game on the road, they got absolutely shelled by Owen Sound. So I feel the one thing that Bannister wanted to really touch on going into this series was being better on the road as a team. And the Hounds in general are going into Game 3 tonight. That it's a kind of the pivotal point of the series where when you're up 2-0 in a series, as soon as you lose that one game, the momentum swings tremendously. When you're up 3-0, don't kid yourself. Teams that play with desperation is also big, but the Hounds have this pivotal game here in this series for the Wayne Gretzky Trophy, as they would call it here in the Western Conference. And for the Hounds to get on top, they need to try to keep getting pucks in net on Mario. Mario's not going to let in a lot of goals for Kitchener. They need to try to get the puck to net there in that deep. The Hounds has to be strong, and they have to capitalize on opportunities. And I feel the special teams, is going to be a big part of being on the road. If you can get on the power play and get a couple goals on the power play and get the fans out of the game quickly, I think that's what's going to bring the Hounds success tonight and for the rest of this series.
Well, Dave, when we talked last week, the Hounds still hadn't played Game 7 yet. And, after that series was done, I said that the Hounds, later last week on the Eagle, I said the Hounds are going to win the series in 5 against Kitchener. And the reason I said that is, well, one, obviously, there's a tremendous talent level advantage for the Sioux Greyhounds. And Kitchener has a lot of great players as well. They have a Detroit Red Wings draft pick, a second-round pick, defenseman that's very good, and, Kalina and others. But I think the Hounds needed that kind of series against Owen Sound rather sooner than later. Now, they could face that still with Kitchener. If they advance, it looks like Hamilton's going to win out of the East. But I really think it was important for them to face some adversity early in the playoffs because they hadn't faced any adversity all season long in the first round. And I really think that was the type of series. Granted, I don't think any Greyhounds fan wanted to go to a Game 7, but they faced adversity. I mean, they got shelled twice. Villalta had a couple really bad games, and he played well, especially in that Game 2, making 34 saves. Only had 18 saves in Game 1, but that one was close. And so I think the Hounds needed that kind of test moving forward, and I really like their chances in this series. Obviously, you win the first 2 games, Dave. They always say that the series doesn't start until a road team wins a game. Well, I think the Hounds are going to get one down in Kitchener. It may not be tonight, but I think they're going to split and come back home on Friday and win. Easier said than done. Always easy to speculate, easy to write on paper, but it's where the results matter is on the ice. And final thoughts on the Hounds before we move on. I think they needed that kind of test and adversity. It's going to make them a better playoff team moving forward.
You know, I couldn't say that any better, Scotty. I basically echo what you would say with that series against Owen Sound. And we said that on the show over on the Michigan side and here on the Sioux side. And everyone in the Sioux even, it wasn't a surprise. And if anyone tells you there was a surprise that Owen Sound pushed the Hounds to the brink and that wasn't going to happen, I think they'd be lying, because everybody that is a hockey individual knows that Owen Sound was the hottest team coming into the playoffs next to the Hounds, and it's good that they pushed them to that limit. It's great. It was a great test. It was a good ego check for the Hounds as well, that anything can happen in the playoffs. Throwing a little Don Cherry reference out there, that how he thought the Hounds were hot dogs, it still gets brought up.
Very nice.
But at the end of the day, it's the Hounds were pushed to the brink. And now against Kitchener, a very good team as well. But obviously, like you said, the Hounds have a bit more firepower, I feel. And I feel that Kitchener has a very big strength in goal with Mario. I'm not saying that on a biased standpoint. I'm saying stating the obvious because of how great he's played. So the Hounds facing that adversity last series was the best thing that happened to them, because that is what's going to benefit them going forward. They didn't have a long rest in between series like they did with the first one. They're able to be fresh. You know, these are young kids. These aren't NHL players that are in their 30s and up. These are young guys that are even younger than myself and yourself, Scotty. So, you know, they heal quicker. They can handle this kind of schedule, and with all these games all crammed in, the Hounds are going to Kitchener. That's not going to be an easy environment either to win. Those Kitchener fans are passionate about their Rangers, and you know, my uncle lives down in Kitchener, and he can say that the buzz in Kitchener is huge. There's a lot of Sioux guys down there as well that are going to the game, to the Kitchener Hounds game tonight, and there's going to be a lot of Hounds people at that game, and this fan base is behind the Hounds. The fans are giving the Hounds momentum at the SR Center there for games. It's just amazing what they faced last series, and how that 9-7 absolute baseball game, I call it, absolutely changed their Hounds season for the rest of the year. I can tell you, it's that awakening. They know they have a tough goalie this series, though. They just got to keep playing the way they have been. These first 2 games have been playing hard, and like you said, I'd be very surprised if they lost more than one in Kitchener this week, coming back for Game 5 at the SR Center.
Game 4 will be Wednesday night. If there is a Game 5, will be Friday night at the SR Center. Hamilton, they're in cruise control over Kingston. They win last night 3-1. Lead that Eastern final 3-0 with Game 4 Tuesday night in Kingston. Dave, before we get to the NHL playoffs, just wanted to real quick touch on the NOJHL, the Cochrane Crunch. We talked last week. Rayside won the first 2 games, and we said, well, you know, it's, or maybe I said, but I think the consensus was that Rayside Balfour, a tough playoff team in the West, a much tougher conference, and all of a sudden the Cochrane Crunch, they've rolled off 3 straight, including last night at Rayside, as Kyle Herbsters scored a shorthanded goal with 6 minutes remaining in regulation, as the Crunch now lead that series 3-2, Game 6 Tuesday night in Cochrane. If there is a Game 7, it will be Thursday at Chelmsford, and this is a Rayside team, one of those games in Cochrane. The Crunch had 6 power play goals. It's a team that likes to get in the penalty box. They are, some would say, a dirty team, and it seems to be costing them this series. The Crunch won one away. Ryan Leonard, Sioux, Ontario native, doing a great job up in Cochrane. Your thoughts?
There's Jamie Henderson, friend of mine and listener of the show and who's been on this show, had a nice little Facebook shout out to Leonard there, who's been a part of the NOJHL for many years in terms of coaching, management, scout, or whatever way you want to put it. And that Cochrane team, their goaltender Shane Badler has been battling, I'd like to say. The guy has made, from what I looked at from previous statistics, I think he's made 100 saves. He's the first star of the week, I believe, if I'm correct. I know Kyle Herbster, I know I'm butchering the last name, was their second star of the week. And then there's a race side player, Partridge, I believe. Forget his first name. I believe it's Partridge, Jake Partridge. Yeah. So, he got those stars. Those players are really sticking out. But obviously, like I said, with Leonard and his goaltender there, Leonard is coaching the team well, or being a part of the team there well, and Cochrane, he's built a very good team. Shane Badler, though, I'm really impressed with his 100 saves over in 3 nights in game 3, 4, and 5. The Cochrane Crunch should not be a surprise to anybody. They've shown this playoffs how they, come through tough. Everyone really thought the East side was very weak, opposed to the Hounds. Wow, I'm still on the Hounds in my mind. The Thunderbirds or Eagles or Race side. It's the Cochrane's a team that is, sure, they like to play hard, they battle hard, but that's the kind of the system that Leonard has always played and has always coached or GM'd or anything he was a part of. That's the way he coached, that strong two-way with a strong goaltender. He's had a lot of strong goaltenders back in the day. Leonard has with Willis, with Stone. There's a lot of goaltenders that he's brought up, and I'm like I said, the main guy that sticks out to me is Shane Badler. That the goaltending wins you championships in those leagues, in the junior leagues, and can get you further. You can have all the star-studded talent you want, but if you don't have a goaltender that can stop the puck, that's what's going to trouble you here. And obviously Shane has done a great job stopping the puck. Leonard has his team on really on a thin rope on what the instructions are and behind into his system. I've talked to individuals who scout in the NOJHL, and they're very impressed how the team is presented on the ice and how the chemistry of the team is on the ice as well, and how the professionalism is on the bench. But yes, they are a very hard team to play against in terms of being disciplined once in a while, but also strikes fears into your opponent. Don't get me wrong, when you're playing hockey at that level and you're not in that higher level in the OHL, NHL, or anything, you're playing junior, you're getting introduced to these guys that are 16, 17, playing against 18, 19, 20-year-old men, some men that are 6'3", 240. These are big guys. You hear those footsteps. You play that hard game, you're making them look over your shoulder each time, makes you hesitate, and it also makes you think twice before carrying the puck up the ice, and that's where Cochrane has that edge on Ray's side. I feel Ray's side has an individual who took out a Thunderbird player for the playoffs, obviously, that we know about, so they're not known as a clean team either, but at the end of the day, Cochrane is showing how they're, I think, the better playoff-built team. Season and playoffs are two different leagues, two different kinds of momentum, two different kinds of seasons. When you're in the playoffs, the teams that win those playoffs are strong goaltending and strong two-way play. Your third and fourth liners are what win you the championships, and your goaltending, not your first and second liner guys. And Cochrane has really shown how they got bought in as a full team. And I got to give credit, much like Jamie Henderson did to Leonard, building a good team, and they have a chance to close it out in Game 6. And I feel that they're going to have the opportunity to do so, and I feel like they are going to do it in the 6th game.
Dave McKeag joining us on the game. We'll be joined in our next segment by Butch Davis from the Telegram News and Butch on Sports. Dave, let's move on. Now, you won't be part of the roundtable tonight because you have to get to a watching party as the Toronto Maple Leafs, still alive in the NHL playoffs. They trail the Boston Bruins 3-2 in their series, their first-round series. Game 6 tonight at the Air Canada Center at 7 o'clock. The Leafs with a win on Saturday night, despite the Bruins getting about 1,000 penalties there, I think, or power plays, I should say, at the end. One other series still going on. The Columbus Blue Jackets look to stave off elimination tonight in Game 6 as they take on the Washington Capitals. That series 3-2 in favor of the Capitals. The winner of the Leafs-Boston series will take on Tampa Bay. Tampa defeats New Jersey in 5 games. The winner of Washington-Columbus will take on Pittsburgh. The two-time defending Stanley Cup champions advanced yesterday with a baseball-like 8-5 win over Philadelphia. The West is set, Dave. Those series will start later on this week. Winnipeg and Nashville. Boy, I just absolutely love that series. And I love the Vegas Golden Knights as they'll take on San Jose in the West. But we're talking Leafs in this segment. Dave, Game 6, Leafs, Bruins, your thoughts going in?
There's one thing today that obviously caught that sports world by surprise, that tragic accident or fatal crash with the van. So obviously the Air Canada Center is going to have that extra security at the game, and it's kind of unfortunate with that kind of in Toronto before a game, and when it involves the world of sports, everyone's got to be cool. That's the term I want to say, because to be in the world of sports, especially now watching the Leafs and being in the playoffs, everyone in Toronto is excited. Everyone's impacted that Toronto is in the playoffs there, and everyone's got to be on the level headed in terms of this. And also my condolences out to the family of that fatal van crash there was in Toronto that was just outside, I believe, the Air Canada Center. I know there's more news to follow. Just a little bit there. I want to get that little tidbit out there, Scotty. But the game tonight is Game 6, but every game is Game 7 for the Toronto Maple Leafs right now. That is desperation. This is a Leaf team that was 3-1 against the Bruins for the entirety of the 2017-2018 season, and playoffs are a complete different cookie. The Bruins are a playoff built team. Let's get real. They absolutely are. Like I was saying in the previous point there, the NOJHL, and even with the Hounds, how those third and fourth liners are the guys that get you to that further point. And obviously I can't say that the Bruins have used their third and fourth line, because that first line with David Pastrnak and Bergeron and Marchand's been the best line that I've seen in the playoffs in recent years. But the Bruins are an all-around good team, which makes it even more scary that they are built for playoff hockey all around, which is why they are a team that was a top team in the East and are a Stanley Cup favorite. And Toronto is a team that was right behind Boston, and they competed with them all year. And Toronto being down 3-1, I think, is the best thing for the Leafs. I did predict the Leafs in 6, so obviously I was incorrect, along with many other people. And there's a lot of people that picked Boston in 6, so the reason why people say 6 games is because the ability for teams to close it out. But to be honest, after watching this whole series, I don't think that Toronto is going down without a fight, and I can't see them not forcing a Game 7. And the Leafs played hungry in Boston. I like the way they played. They played a different style of game. Babcock juggled the lines. He did a very good job utilizing his players and the special teams, and the discipline wasn't there at certain points, but Anderson also stood on his head. He's going to be a big part. That goes without saying that he's going to be a big part in Game 6 tonight. And the Air Canada Center is going to be absolutely rocking. Let's get real. It's one of the best buildings to play at when it comes to playoff hockey. Obviously in the season, people say you can hear pin drops because of the business people that are in there, but this is playoff hockey in Maple Leaf Square, and the Air Canada Center is going to be just absolutely just loud and electrifying. I'm not sure if it's going to be as loud as the MTS Center in Winnipeg, which is absolutely shivering. Even when you said, Scotty, with Winnipeg and Nashville having a series against each other, I just can't believe that's going to be probably the best playoff series that we're going to see in this entire playoffs. But this series as well is definitely going to be one of the best. And when it comes to an end, it's going to be sad, even if it's Boston or Toronto on top. And Toronto tonight has to go into the game. They have to keep it simple like they did last game and capitalize on their opportunities. They have home ice. Use that to your advantage. And going back to the Garden, I'm going to be confident that they are going to go back to the Garden for Game 7. And now they're going to be reliving 2013 all over again. Game 7, back at the Boston Garden, at the TD Garden, whatever anyone would like to call it. And it's going to be breaking that curse. And I remember saying this to you, Scotty, that the Leafs have to break the curse before they can move on in this playoffs. And then playing Boston, and if they go back to Boston for Game 7, how sweet would that be for them to go back and capitalize and win Game 7 in the TD Garden? It's going to be tough. They're playing a Boston team that, they have to beat 2 more times, which would be 3 consecutive times to beat them, which people say is impossible. But people have to remember this is playoff hockey, and this is NHL teams, and the Leafs are one of the best offenses in the league with a very good goalie. They can get it done. I'm confident that they are going to get it done tonight and go back to the Garden for Game 7.
Yeah, Dave, been such a busy day for me. I hadn't had a chance to see the news and what you were discussing there at the beginning, talking about what happened in Toronto. Just a tragic day as a van struck pedestrians in the Toronto area and the city's Yonge and Finch area. CBC News is reporting 9 people dead, 16 people are injured. The suspect is in custody, and again, we seem to say this almost every other week, but our thoughts and prayers are with the city of Toronto and the families of those individuals. And it's another example, Dave, of sometimes the real world, being a part of not just sports, but our world. And, just what do you say? Just an awful tragedy.
No, absolutely. And it's been tragedies are coming a lot in. You got the Humboldt tragedy that happened that was big, and then this incident in Toronto, and it's just things obviously be are piling in, and I'm speechless by just reading more of it here. I heard about it earlier, and just reading it more of it, and you told me more information there, which is why I didn't want to get too much into it, obviously, because I don't want to state facts that were incorrect. So I want to say thanks for clearing that up for us and listeners there, obviously, because I didn't provide as much information as I wanted to. But in this kind of thing with this, it's tragic, and the condolences out for sure. And, the enhanced security at the Air Canada Centre and at Maple Leaf Square is definitely obviously needed. You can never be too safe nowadays, which I feel is very unfortunate. It's not like the way it used to be in the world, I feel like. And now we're getting to a whole nother topic, which we could save for an off-air discussion. But, it comes to a point of what, you always gotta always appreciate the loved ones that are around you. And this, like with these Maple Leafs, I don't want their playoffs to end, and I feel enhancing the security at the game and keeping the safety of the public so the fans can enjoy the game and enjoy a Leafs Game 6 win is very important for not only Toronto, just the city and Toronto in general, and for the Maple Leaf organization. It's very good that the Leafs are reaching out and enhancing the security and being a part of this tragic to try to help what's going on, and the MLSE getting involved as well with the family that's impacted. So they very close to the Toronto Police Services, the Toronto Maple Leafs and the MLSE organization. So I'm sure that the MLSE in Toronto will be very helpful to the families as well. So definitely condolences, and hopefully Toronto can get the win for those guys tonight.
Dave, time for one more subject here. We'll get more into the NBA playoffs with Butch during our roundtable, but I wanted to talk about the Toronto Raptors with you. The Raptors have a series against the Washington Wizards after winning the first 2 games at home. The Wizards have held serve and winning Game 4 yesterday by the score of 106-98. John Wall took over after Bradley Beal fouled out on a pretty chintzy foul number 6 for him, and he showed his displeasure on the sideline. Wall had 27 points, 14 assists, and played very good defense, I think, on DeRozan, who got his points but didn't get his points late. So Game 5 will be Wednesday in Toronto. Dave, the Raptors in playoffs, they had a lot of pressure going into this playoff series, and, they got a lot of pressure now going back to Toronto for Game 5. Your thoughts?
Oh, there's lots to speak about. There's the team that is 8-31 lifetime in road playoff games. And I feel the Raptors cannot, it's the same old, wow, I made a new word there. The same old kind of creepy curse, or I forget what the word is, ghosts, or, this kind of stuff that keeps coming up on them there. And, with the Raptors being 8-31 in the road in the playoffs, they're showing that they're not a very good road team in the playoffs. They also had a situation last night with DeRozan and Lowry threw more shots than the entire Raptors team, which is for the first time this year that happened, where DeRozan and Lowry threw more than the entire Raptors team. I believe Lowry and DeRozan threw 41 shots, and Lowry was around 35, around that area. The rest of the team only shot 35. So that shows that DeRozan and Lowry weren't utilizing their team as much, I feel, or the coverage on the other players weren't there. I'm not too sure, but I know that Dwayne Casey's definitely going to address getting team players more in the open and surrounding and using the team more for the next game. And this is a series. I can even say, and I know we've discussed this, and there's certain friends that thought I was crazy for saying it, because I've told you first, Scotty, that I feel the Raptors are a finals team this year because of how open the East is. But you have to get it past the first round first and all these other rounds. So the big thing is this Washington Wizards team, I was scared for the Raptors to play these guys. Them and the Bucks. Those are 2 teams I did not want the Raptors to play. I wanted them to play the Heat over those other guys. So with the Washington Wizards, the team that is very good, Wall and Beal, these are good basketball players, and they're well coached as well. This is a team that, yes, finished 8th seed, but I don't think this is truly an 8th seeded team. I think the Washington Wizards are a very good ball team. It's a good test for the Raptors. I still can't see the Raptors losing this series, to be honest, but I did flat out say this is going to be a 6-game series. The Washington Wizards, what I mean by they, are a very good basketball team, and the Raptors were outmatched defensively and offensively. They let their foot off the gas after the second half. You think going to the second half after being up 11 that the Raptors had this in the bag, and it always seems to be a problem with the Raptors. With this series, too, they were up by 30, I think, at one point back to the Air Canada Center for game 1 or 2, and they let the Wizards back into the game in the second half. Like, the Raptors have to keep the foot on the pedal, and they have to keep going. Like, you can't stop or let up. And this is a team that has great depth with their starting five, and their bench is one of the best in the league. And it's very sad when you're depending on Fred VanVleet to be your guy. This is a guy that is not DeRozan. He's not Lowry. He's not even supposed to be at the elite level as Valanciunas. Valanciunas, who's not even, in my opinion, being visible out in the basketball court at all. It's kind of bad when Fred VanVleet has been your best player in this series so far. I feel like even more than DeRozan, even though he's got more points than VanVleet has, I still feel that DeRozan's being extremely selfish with the ball and throwing it in bad coverage. So he's not capitalizing on his opportunities. The Raptors need to smarten up defensively, or they're going to go back to Washington down 3-2, and that's not something you want. And they should not be taken lightly, Washington, because it does not matter if the Raptors finish first. They're not going to go out and blow out Washington every game. And this is a good test for the Raptors to also get their ego in check and know that they are all equal, that the East is wide open, and that they have to play better defense and utilize the team more like they were all year, which is why they won 59 games. And also go back to Washington up 3-2, because you do not want to be down 3-2 going back to Washington. I'm pretty disappointed with the Raptors play, especially on the road. They have to get it together, and good teams find ways to win. So I'm confident the Raptors will do that. But if they get themselves in some trouble next game like they did the last two games in Washington with their foot off the gas, they're going to go back to Washington down 3-2.
Dave McCaig joining us on the game. Dave, before we let you go, we got to get to your thumbs up and thumbs down for the week. I'll do mine along with Butch during the roundtable. So, thumbs up and thumbs down, sir.
Thumbs up. I'll start with the definite thumbs up for sure that the Leafs battling back in game on Saturday there for forcing a game 6. I was definitely pleased with the effort that they provided, and that's how they've been playing even the last two games, even though that they lost that late one here in Toronto. I feel like the Leafs have been playing better. So I'm going to give a thumbs up to the Leafs playing better as well. And in connection to that, Kasperi Kapanen's been an absolute stud. I feel the guy is extremely well. He's one of the fastest guys on that ice. So a thumbs up to the Leafs battling back and forcing a game 6. So I'm hoping that they force a game 7 on Wednesday. And win that game 7. So it makes my Thursday show at Boston Pizza a lot better as well. Thumbs down. I got to go to Marcus Stroman of the Toronto Blue Jays. The guy has had some struggles this year. A guy that apparently was motivated by his rating in MLB The Show 18. And apparently, he's rattled how he had a 76 overall and how he's not rated properly. I'm not going to lie to you. The guy deserves to be rated lower than a 76 for the way he's pitched. This is the guy that we depend to be our ace next to Aaron Sanchez. He electrifies the rotation. He electrifies the fans. And he also is a very good pitcher to get under the skin of the batters. And his last performance in Yankee Stadium was less than impressive. And Marcus Stroman has to get his game back because we depend on him. And Sanchez and Happ have been playing well. Jaime Garcia has been letting balls up in the air and home runs like it's home runville where it is. And even Estrada isn't playing well. So we need Stroman to do well, as the Jays have pulled out a lot of wins so far this year and have started out very well out of the gate, better than I expected. But for them to keep this up, the pitching has to keep up. And Sanchez has done his part, and even Happ. Stroman has to get his act together and get back to what he does regularly and work on the game that he does well, and that is getting ground balls, because he has been an absolute thumbs down.
Dave McCaig joining us on the game. You can hear more of Dave on his 2 shows from Sioux, Ontario. Wednesday nights, he broadcasts from Sports Center Bar and Grill in Sioux, Ontario. And then on Thursday night, Boston Pizza, also in Sioux, Ontario. You can find his broadcasts on several places, including the podcast page of this show, thegamesportshow.podbean.com. You can also go to the website of The Game Sports Show, simply thegamesportshow.com, or go to YouTube. Just type in The Game Sports Show. You can find all past editions. Dave, what do you got on deck here this week for your shows?
On Wednesday, we're going to have a show with myself and Jamie for sure. Might only be the two of us. We're going to be talking a little bit mock of NFL draft that is coming up and around the corner. So a little off-season in the pocket edition. We're also going to talk a little NBA playoffs on Wednesday as well, of course. And we usually don't do this. We might have a little NHL talk in there for Jamie. I know Jamie's been following the NHL playoffs. And, of course, our Canadian version of the roundtable definitely took that idea from you, Scotty. So that is on the Wednesday show at Sports Center at 9:30. Thursday, we're going to be at Boston Pizza. It's 9 o'clock shortly after, so a little bit less than 9:30, just in time for the daily specials at Boston Pizza. And it's going to be myself, Justin, and Brad, with hopefully special guest Brendan Brooks, a good friend of mine who played over in Europe and has won the scoring title as one of the oldest players ever to win one, if I'm correct. Played over his 1,000th game over there and everything, and he is going to give a little announcement that I'm surprised over that we're going to hear first on the show as well, for in terms of his kind of playing career, what's going to happen going forward for Brendan Brooks. And we're also hoping that this week also that Joey Miller and John Parco from the Sioux Thunderbirds are able to come on this week. Last week we couldn't have had them on, so we're hoping that they are on this week. So that's the guest this week, and we're also going to be talking about NHL playoffs, our usual hockey, and also Toronto Blue Jays update on Thursday live at Boston Pizza.
We'll definitely look forward to that, Dave. And our show next week will happen on Mondays. My umpiring gig next Monday here in the Sioux was canceled. It's either going to be at the Wicked Sister on Monday night, or if the Hounds do get to a Game 7, I certainly hope they don't. I hope they wrap up the series before that. But if they get to a Game 7, that game would be Monday night at the SR Center. Dave, if there's a Game 5, I'm going to try to get over to see that one. But if there is a Game 7, we are going to try to do a live broadcast from the SR Center before the game. We'll start a little bit earlier. So, Dave, we don't know where we're going to be Monday night, but we know this. We'll be back Monday night, and hopefully you can make it as well, sir.
Oh, I am there for sure. I start the new schedule next week at the other gig, from my other gig at the hospital. So I'm 8 to 4, so I'm definitely off by 4, so I'm definitely there if it's the Game 7 or if it's at the Wicked Sister. And also by then, Scotty, I must throw out there that hopefully by then, because I got a little teaser picture from our guy who's doing our T-shirts that actually had the finished product to show you and launch on the website, as the shirts are getting pressed as we speak right now. The shirts that are going to be launched on our website, and we're going to talk about on the show, where the proceeds go towards charities for Northern Critters in Need and Big Brother, Big Sister, Sault Ste. Marie. So you definitely got to keep your eye out for that. I know, Scotty, you're going to love these shirts. Very simple, yet perfect. That's what I like to call them.
Much like you, Dave. You're very simple yet perfect. Dave McKeag joining us on the game. Dave, thanks for joining us. I know you got to get to your Leafs viewing party. Best of luck to the Leafs, and we'll talk to you next week, my friend.
Absolutely, and thank you, Scotty. Look forward to next week, and go Leafs, go. Absolutely.
Absolutely, indeed. And we'll be back with Butch Davis from the Telegram News and Butch on Sports, who will get us up to date on what's going on in the Metro Detroit sports world. And we'll have our roundtable where we'll talk more about the NHL playoffs, NBA playoffs, and more. You're listening to The Game on Eagle 95.1.
The Wicked Sister, Sioux, Michigan. Check TripAdvisor. Ranked right towards the top. Awarded the Certificate of Excellence, as well as voted #1 pub in the UP. The Wicked Sister has managed to create a casual menu that offers unique, creative, and sometimes healthy offerings that rivals menu selections of any big city. Burgers and starters, snacks and shareable, soups and salads, sandwiches and tapas. On Ashman Street, Sioux, Michigan. Welcome to the Wicked Sister, where you'll be treated like family, whether you like it or not.
The Game Sports Show would like to thank an additional home to the Game Sports Show, Canadian franchise Boston Pizza. Boston Pizza, Sault Ste. Marie, located on 601 Great Northern Road, Sault Ste. Marie. Come in and join Boston Pizza for its numerous specials that are offered. After 9 p.m. daily, come in to Boston Pizza for $9 schooners, $4 rail drinks, and delicious food. Boston Pizza, Sault Ste. Marie, you're among friends.
Thank you for tuning in to The Game, heard Monday nights from the Wicked Sister on Ashman Street on Eagle 95.1, also online at radioeaglesioux.com and the podcast page, The Game Sports Show. .podbean.com. I hope you're enjoying the broadcast. Now, if you want to hear more of the Twin Sault's only local, regional, and national talk show, I encourage you to visit our website at thegamesportshow.com, and you can tune into a pair of broadcasts of the Game Sports Show from Sioux, Ontario. Our co-host here on the game, Mr. Electric Avenue Dave McKeag, broadcasts the show on Wednesday night from Sports Center Bar and Grill in Sioux, Ontario, along with his regular contributors, Jamie Antonello, Justin Heichel, and Dane Hantro. They focus on football with their In the Pocket segment, talking about the NFL, along with basketball and the NBA, and other sports, including tennis, golf, soccer, and the WWE. If you like hockey, Thursday nights are for you, as the Game Sports Show is broadcasting from Boston Pizza in Sioux, Ontario, with Dave McKeag, along with his regular contributors, Justin Heichel and Dane Hantro. Now, this show focuses on hockey in the wintertime and baseball in the summer, and will include guests and interviews from from local and national figures. Once again, you can hear 3 versions of the game at our website, thegamesportshow.com, or at the podcast page, thegamesportshow.podbean.com. Also on the podcast page, you will find selected audio broadcasts of Sioux Eagles home games, Brimley Bay's basketball, and Sioux High Blue Devil hockey, along with game contributor Butch Davis and his broadcasts of Butch on Sports. You can also find us on YouTube. Look for the Scott Nason channel. Thank you for listening, and keep it locked here to the game for all your local, regional, and national sports talk that you just can't get enough of.
The Game Sports Show would like to thank a list of additional sponsors. North Shore Sports and Auto, new location located on 647 McDonald Avenue, Sault Ste. Marie. A family-owned and operated business with doing business in Sault Ste. Marie for over 10 years. Loads of products available for your enjoyment for all seasons. North Shore Sports and Auto, we understand the importance of quality service and products, and we work hard to ensure that all customers have a positive experience before and after each and every sale. North Shore Sports and Auto, meeting all of your new and pre-owned equipment needs. Special thanks to Salon. The Salon, located on 589 2nd Line East, Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Owned and operated by Mike Cuglietta. Book your appointment today at 705-941-9191 or via online at https://thesalonsioux.as.me-. The Salon, making the Sioux beautiful, one haircut at a time. As well as a shout out to the Sioux Pee Wee Pro Shop. The Sioux Pee Wee Pro Shop, located inside the Community First Credit Union Sioux Pee Wee Arena on 285 Northern Avenue East, Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Owned and operated by Jeremy Paquin and ran by Larry Monroe. Sioux Pee Wee Pro Shop, for over 40 years, meet all of your skate sharpening, skate repair, and hockey needs. Also to Discover the Canvas. Discover the Canvas, located on 317 Wellington Street West, Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. A beautiful new renovated building owned and operated by expert artist and Sioux native Katrina Thibodeau. Katrina taking her talents of the ink in Sault Ste. Marie and truly creating the best and most realistic art locally. Call Katrina today at 705-450-8099 or email her at discoverthecanvas@gmail.com to book your tattoo or consultation today.
Welcome back to the game on Eagle 95.1. Scott Nason broadcasting from the studios of Eagle 95.1 on Ashman Street on this absolutely perfect spring evening in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. I want to thank Dave McKeag for joining us. He is off to watch the Toronto Maple Leafs, who will be in Game 6 coming up here in a matter of minutes. But we're joined right now by our good friend and co-host Butch Davis from the Telegram News and the radio show Butch on Sports, as Butch joins us each and every week to cover the Metro Detroit professional and collegiate sports scene. Butch, first of all, before we get to all the other stuff, happy belated birthday this week. How you doing, my friend?
Well, thank you. We have a better birthday. We had some playoff games going on here, but we were stuck with the Tigers this weekend. So what here, huh?
Yeah, we're going to talk more about the playoffs here coming up, but let's start with the Tigers, Butch. Tigers had a pretty good week as far as some exciting games. They ended up splitting the series against Kansas City. It looked like that we might have a potential no-hitter for the Detroit Tigers. Well, I don't think the pitcher would have made it all the way to the ninth inning, but the Tigers did lose on Sunday by the score of 8-5. The bullpen struggled after Francisco Liriano pitched a solid game. It was Mike Moustakas who hit a tie-breaking 3-run homer in the seventh inning as the Kansas City Royals outlasted the Tigers 8-5, splitting the four-game series. Tigers did have a successful week, winning the homestand. They are now 9-11. And we'll start a 3-game series at Pittsburgh on Tuesday before heading to Baltimore 4-3 on the weekend. So, Butch, at the 20-game mark, the Tigers 9-11. They are making some games exciting. Your thoughts on the Detroit Tigers' first 20 games in this past week?
You don't want to know, but I'll tell you anyway. Yeah, really. It's what we thought it would be right now. There, I didn't think the Tigers were as bad as people would project them to be. However, there's a lot of learning curves in there. The learning curves are basically simple. You got a lot of new people playing with each other. They have not gotten adjusted with each other yet. That shows on the field. Mikado, it shows on the field. Jacoby Jones, it shows on the field. Martin, it shows on the field. Calileros, it shows on the field. Those are going to have to be rectified. However, what I am very pleased about is them knocking men on base. The men on base has been atrocious, not knocking them in. This week, they seem to find a cure knocking more men in on base. Is it an improvement? Yes, it is. Can they do better? Yes, they can. The bullpen pitching has to be very bothersome to Ron Gardenheimer there, okay? Vern Hagen has been sent down as of today. Mike Gerber, right fielder, outfielder, has been called up. So we're going to get some offensive plugs in there to knock the ball, I guess, around the old ballpark there. And again, it's going to be narrowing it down for pitchers getting themselves together, especially Alex Wilson. He has not looked good this season for the Detroit Tigers at all. And I'm speaking of the beginning of the season to right about Sunday when he just boxed it up really bad there. So there you have it in a nutshell. Tigers getting a little better. They are very competitive. They're going out there playing rock'em sock'em robots with the ball clubs they're playing with. However, they need to do some improving in some areas. That means defense as well as the bullpen spelling off. Right now, the pitchers for the Detroit Tigers are good for 5 innings, and that's it. And that goes for the whole ship of them. Zimmerman all the way down. 5 innings, that's it.
Yeah, Butch, I think you said it best where, the Tigers, I think, are where a lot of us thought they would be. I mean, they show signs that they are going to be a good team, a competitive team, and then they show signs where they're going to be an inexperienced young team. And I never bought that they were going to be the worst team in the league, 100 losses. I mean, I think they have too many veterans that still maybe have a little bit to prove. But again, these youngsters that are getting a chance to come up and play, and having a manager like Gardenhire there to just kind of, keep the ship going, kind of stabilizing the ship. It's not, the Tigers aren't going to make the playoffs, but, it's going to be an up and down season, and I think in the future, hopefully they can get this thing turned around. Look what Houston did a few years ago, Butch, when they were kind of in the same situation the Tigers were, maybe even a little worse situation, and, 3 years later they win the World Series. So the jury's still all on the Tigers, but I think most fans would say, right now, things aren't that bad.
Well, the tolerance level for Ron Gardenheimer right now is going to be level keeled here right now, but you can tell that particular tolerance level is not going to be there, I guess, in another month or so when pitchers who should be pitching a lot better, and we're talking about our bullpen staff especially, and the starting pitchers so they can at least 6 innings or better, he's not going to tolerate that there. I can see that right now in about 30 days here. Now, men being knocked on base, that's a given there. I think with a lot more tooling and a lot more tampering with the hitters there on situational hitter. Let's use Calilanos for example. On Friday, hitting, they had a shift on him, and immediately he went against the shift, knocked in a run. You're going to see more of manufacturing runs when there's ability to do so. And they do that, then you won't leave too many men on base.
Butch, let's move on to the Detroit Lions, who will be participating, as all the NFL teams will be doing in the NFL draft starting on Thursday. The Lions have the 20th pick in this year's NFL draft under new head coach Mike Patricia. Butch, your thoughts on the Lions this week, off-season, and heading into the NFL draft starting on Thursday?
Well, as usual, you're not going to get any indication of who they're going to get right now. They're going 20th in the draft. We don't know if they're going to move up or move down, okay, in similarities to years past where really in actuality they did absolutely nothing. I can see right now that the settling in the clubhouse has been a lot better. There's a lot more positivity going on on a couple of days that I have visited down there. However, the draft is a given. We really don't know what the Lions is going to get. They're going to get something with needs. Their needs is basically simple. They need a very good running back. They need an absolutely stop and drop cornerback. I think the cornerbacks this year are going to be put on trial. If they can't get it done, they're not going to be around. And I do know that they're looking for linebackers and some offensive linemen. So you just take all that in the wet wash there and just say whoever's left, the Lions are going to pick probably the best athlete out the litter at the 20th pick there.
Butch Davis joining us on the game. Butch, we're going to talk about the NBA and NHL playoffs coming up in the roundtable. You mentioned it coming on the air. No Detroit teams participating. We talked to Dave McKegg about how the Toronto teams are doing. Anything to report on the Wings and the Pistons? Obviously, the Wings will be in the draft lottery coming up here in a little while. And the Pistons, we still aren't 100% sure, I think, if they're going to have a different head coach. What can you tell us about both the Red Wings and the Pistons?
Well, we did get news that the meeting taking place with Tom Gore and Stan Van Gundy is going to take place probably the end of the week or no longer than the middle of next week. They will get together and have a conference there. And that conference is going to be very, very simple. Where do you see yourself next year? Do you see yourself being able to do both jobs? Do you see yourself just being just a regular coach? Do you need help in the upper echelons of the administration staff? I have said before, and I disagree with a lot of news people, that he would be better placed under the administrative staff for his very last year. I would like to see Detroit go out there and get a coach. They need someone who basically they don't have to see all that, somebody who's writing the checks, and then someone going out there to coach them. It has not worked for Stan Van Gundy. He has had marvelous people to work with. And we can look at the playoffs this year and see how many people that making huge contributions. Middleton, we looked at yesterday that we had once upon a time there. Boston has a couple of our men. Jerebko, okay, we've had him. Greg Monroe, we have had him. And the list goes on and on and on. So it's not about not having the players or the talent. It's about the coaching and down there. And I just hope someone has some doggone sense in the whole meeting and get it right. You know, many of the media people down here feel that he should be the coach. I don't agree with that with a doggone there. You're not going to get maybe Bill Laimbeer because he's now the big-time boogie bear. And yes, he is in Las Vegas now.
That's
here.
Right.
That first-round draft choice that he got here. So he's sitting pretty in the catbird seat there. But again, they got to get them someone who has some influence over the players, not afraid of the players, and get up in their grill and say, hey, look, you're not doing very well at all. They can't have the sometime I feel like a nut, sometime I don't kind of attitude, which they have been giving these fans now for the last 2.5 years here. You got to have players that come to camp healthy, and that has not been an objective for the Detroit Pistons and the players that Stan Van Gundy has signed.
Butch, we talked a little bit in the first segment about the spring sports season just getting underway here. We still have snow on the ground despite the nice weather over the past few days. Anything going on in your neck of the woods as far as spring sports and things you wanted to bring up before we go to our roundtable discussion?
Well, spring sports half came about here. In many ways, we had an incident yesterday where Grosse Ile, their rowing team, was out practicing at Belle Isle, and they're because of the water and the waves, and you know how the Detroit River is.
Oh yeah.
Their boat flipped.
Oh no.
And it was some immediate. If it wasn't for the closeness of the ships and also the police department on on the boats there, it could have been a very, very huge situation there. But
Wow.
every guy was saved out the water. I believe 3 went into water. 4 was able to go and swim near a boat where they can hang on till rescue boats had arrived and got them out of safety. Right now, 3 had suffered from hypothermia after they were saved. So, you kind of cross your feet and thumbs there and say, well, you know what? That's a good deal compared to what here. So that's really the big news. All the other sports now are competing. The girls tennis is competing. The baseball is getting warmed up here where they're able to fix the fields up legitimately and they play some baseball there. But right now, it probably won't get cranked up. I do believe, and I say the 1st of May, that's when they're going to do all these makeup there. And that's when we'll see a lot of tides turn as far as spring sports for high school sports, that is.
Yeah, I said the same thing here in the first segment, Butch. We're looking at the first week of May, probably later next week. I was by the fields here in town, and they still are covered with snow. So you need at least a week, to get that underway. Butch, let's move on to our roundtable, just you and I tonight. So we got about a half hour to talk about anything that you or I want to bring up. So I'm going to defer to you first and give you the first crack on the roundtable as far as a topic you would like to discuss. So Butch Davis, what would you like to discuss first here tonight?
I don't know. I'll take the first thing that came to my head. Some of the officiating right now in the NBA and also the NHL has been ridiculous, okay? And some of the calls have been very ridiculous. Very obvious calls where you really couldn't tell. But whatever instruments they have in New York or Toronto, they must be better than what we're seeing because they're not giving us any results there. I want to know what you think about the officiating right now in those particular two, where it's so important that if the referees and the officials don't be part of the game or part of the problem there.
Well, Butch, it's something that you've brought up several times. It's something that we've discussed throughout the season here on the game, and it's something that it seems like every night you witness something different. I'll give you 2 examples of sports that I watched yesterday, and just calls that just you scratch your head as sometimes as far as the officials and what game they're watching. You look at that Philadelphia-Pittsburgh hockey game. It was the 3rd period. It was a 4-4 game, and I think Pittsburgh was up 1. And there was a play in the Philadelphia zone where the Flyers player got it. I can't remember who it was, and it was as obvious a trip as you'll ever see. The guy just literally took his stick, and the guy went head over heels. No call. Pittsburgh, on that same play, goes and scores a goal, and that was pretty much the game. And the Flyers fans showed their displeasure by throwing a bunch of beer cans, full ones I might add, because the empty beer cans don't really go that far, especially if you're in the upper deck. So we've seen that in the NHL playoffs. I mean, these officials are human, but like you said, maybe the powers that be in Toronto in this case are seeing things that maybe we're not seeing as far as the broadcast. And NBA, there's a game there between Washington and Toronto last night as the Wizards' Bradley Beal. You don't see many players foul out in the NBA anymore, especially star players. He was playing with 5 fouls, and he got called for his 6th foul, and every review basically showed that it was a suspect call at most, and he gets his 6th foul. And, well, the Wizards ended up winning that game as John Wall had a very nice performance there as they even up that series against the Toronto Raptors. And you see it in all sports, and maybe there's too much information. You know, you look at I'm a big soccer guy, as you know, Butch, and in the Premier League, you look at these officials, and I gotta say, they're more right than wrong than a lot of these officials we see in the NHL, the NFL, and these guys have to cover a lot of field, and it's one guy that is making these calls. And, maybe we need to adopt a little bit about soccer and some of the things that they do there. Of course, you have replays with goals and the ball going over the line. But it just seems to me in the games that I watch that it's the Premier League seems to have some very good officials that have a lot to do, whereas, in these NBA games you have 3 officials, NHL games you have 4 officials, NFL, I don't know how many guys you have. So I think there are some question marks as far as officiating and some of the things that at least I've witnessed just yesterday. Your thoughts, Butch, on your own topic?
Well, you were right on everything that you saw yesterday. I saw the same thing. I also saw in the Golden State game where basically one of the balls went out of bounds and they gave the ball to Golden State. Only the officials got together and changed the call around there for that particular one. I do believe that's Golden State, the San Antonio Spurs game there that happened. But again, I don't know what they're looking at. I don't know what their concentration is. They don't seem too animate on where the play is there. And that's where I have a problem with this particular there. I also have a problem with basically, not being able to see what was determined to overturn a call that basically looked very obvious. Some of the goals that were given yesterday were very obvious that they were goals, and one was taken away there. That was just plain and simple. I do believe that was the Philadelphia game and Pittsburgh game that happened in there. It's been wacky at best there. They're not gaining any fan trust when it comes down to human beings making decisions there. And many people think that, for these officials to do what they're doing, maybe Las Vegas has something to do with it there. And if you read my drift, you know where I'm coming from on that there. Hopefully that is not the case. But again, on the off season, these two conglomerates, NHL as well as the NBA, they got to get it right there. And also Major League Baseball too. They have some wacky calls this particular week that basically look very simple or inconclusive, that they called the person out or whatever it may be. I don't know what's going on, reversing the call on that particular there. I'm hoping to get it right. I'm hoping that the National Football League don't follow suit again, as they have done in the past. They seem to have one ruling change, and that's the catch rule. But how far that will go is for us to see in the future.
Butch Davis joining us on the game, continuing our roundtable discussion. Butch, I want to pose a question to you. I've been watching a lot of the NBA and NHL playoffs, and I've always been under the impression, at least in my viewing experience, that especially the first round of the NHL playoffs is vastly superior than the first round of the NBA playoffs. And the question I have for you, Butch, is I want to know your thoughts this year so far on the first round of the NHL playoffs and the first round of the NBA playoffs. As I said earlier, I've said over the past that I think the NHL playoffs were vastly superior. I still think that watching a sporting event in the first round, we're talking first round of the playoffs, is still more enjoyable, in my opinion, with the NHL playoffs. However, I think this year the gap has narrowed. I mean, you look at the NHL playoffs in the first round, a couple series still going on tonight, Toronto and Boston. Boston up 3-2 in that series. You have Columbus and Washington. Columbus trailing 3-2, but you have a lot of different series going on. You have Vegas that has swept the series. They're going to take on San Jose. You have Winnipeg taking on Nashville in the East. But the NBA, I think, the first round of the playoffs has been very competitive. I mean, you look at yesterday what happened, Butch. All the series are still going on. Only one team has swept. That is New Orleans, as they swept out the Portland Trail Blazers. But you have three series that were tied at 2 games apiece yesterday. Milwaukee topping Boston. That series tied at 2. Washington topping Toronto. That series tied at 2. And you have Oklahoma City, Utah. That series 2-1. Minnesota wins against Houston 2-1. So I guess the topic I wanted to bring up is first rounds of the playoff, NHL, NBA. What's your thoughts as far as some of the things I brought up there? I think both first rounds this year have been very entertaining.
Very entertaining. I guess reception for the Portland series there, that really shocked everybody, thinking that series would be somewhat a royal series there, and it wasn't, with the Pelicans just beating the crap out of the Portland Trail Blazers. You kind of feel bad for Terry Scott and what may happen to him in the offseason there because of this particular loss, because I know Portland was not expecting to go that way. Now, the other series, per se, regardless of the injuries, We see some very entertaining games in the NBA, especially in this first round. Indiana has played very well. Cleveland is battling. You're seeing the majority of the ball handling and the scoring elevated by their star, in this case, LeBron James, had a 56% of the scoring either via rebounding, via assists, via scoring there. So that's a huge lopsided type of affair there, that you have the open stars getting out there and really putting up the metal. Now, on the other half, we see some people that you never heard of before, such as the San Antonio Spurs yesterday playing the Golden State Warriors. I expected them to get swept, and they did not. The San Antonio Spurs came out there with guns a-blazing, and a lot of kids coming off that bench played a significant game and some significant minutes. Of course, the veterans who should have been doing better than they have in that particular game, they came and showed up to play. Every last one of them, from Aldridge on to Ginobili.
Ginobili, yeah.
Yeah, Ginobili played one heck of a game yesterday there, and played a whole heck of a lot of minutes. Tony Parker did very well coming off the bench there. I like the first round, and especially I think again the series that really shocked the crap out of me was the Las Vegas series there, where I did not think that they were that superior, although the season they were world beaters. But the way they handled the Kings and Dowdy and some of the main players on that doggone team was extraordinary there. Goaltending has been, for about every team, has been great, and I enjoyed every minute of it. The wins or the losses, those goaltenders have played their rear ends off there and kept the many teams in game. We've seen more OTs than we have in a long stretch of time there. Washington always seems to go through these OTs here. But again, the goaltending on both sides has been absolutely great there. So I agree with you so much that the first rounds are always the best rounds to look at here, at least this year, per se, in the National Football League. Not the National Football League. Didn't know where to be found. The NBA, I should say, there, and also the NHL. They're playing some fantastic games right now here.
It's been a lot of fun to watch. Butch, let's go back to you. We have time for one, maybe even two more topics on our roundtable. So anything else on your mind as far as the world of sports that you want to bring up tonight?
Oh, I just didn't look up nothing there to feel my funny bone here. I think one of the things that came up this week was some of the wackiness going on where the players for North Carolina, as well as another school, Kansas, has been caught in the cookie jar here, where they're paying mommies and daddies, again, an absolute big amount of money to point out where their kids should be going here. And sooner or later, something's going to be done about that, where the schools now are going to be more discouraged. I say more discouraged, not to get these players that they feel are going to be doing the one and done. Now, the NBA is going to change their rules around where something happens to these kids who does that there, and they're not going to get immediate exposure to the NBA, and that should be the case. But again, you're looking at the courts, and they saying, hey, look, here's an 18-year-old kid ready to go professional. Can you stop this young man from doing that? National Football League seem to have that harnessed very well. And if the NBA takes the lead of the National Football League, you will not see any kids coming in, not until maybe after their second year of playing some professional games, or say. And the reason being that the maturity level is not there. And then you find so many players who think it's just about me. And as you know, you watch these playoffs here, it's the best teams that win, not just the individuals. I think you can ask LeBron James that question, and he would thoroughly agree, because right now, if he don't have people showing up on his team's going to lose, regardless of how great he is here. And I just want to know the complex of these kids and their parents having more influence in claim they're going to college, but don't, and yet and still getting money under the table to feed their woes and whatnot there. They're not going to go to prison, but the people who shove the money up there might do. So what? Hey.
Yeah, I think you hit it, Butch, right on the head when you said the NFL, I think, gets it right the most as far as, players playing 2 years in college, and you look at these athletes and what they're exposed to both at the collegiate and professional level. I mean, especially these guys in the NBA that, play a year of college and then go directly to the NBA. Some of these guys, 19 years old, and the lifestyle. And we've seen over the years that can trap some people and that aren't used to, the life of the luxury and such like that. And so there's always going to be instances, especially in college, where you're going to have these shady characters, if you will, that want to get involved with these athletes. I mean, you look at what happened there with the Fab Five at Michigan, and the price that those individuals paid, losing Final Four banners, among other things. And it's just one of those unfortunate things in college, and especially college basketball. That seems to be under the microscope more than anything right now. I mean, all you have to do is look at the FBI and their investigation of what's going on at several of these schools and these coaches and these programs. I mean, look what's going on in Louisville, where you had, all sorts of things going on that go above and beyond what should happen at a collegiate university. But I think the NBA should look at, doing what the NFL does, having these guys play 2 years of college basketball. A little different in the NHL and Major League Baseball. Of course, you have junior hockey leagues where these young men are playing their hockey, and in baseball you have collegiate baseball and such. Some of these guys will make it right to the pros, but I think you said it best, Butch. I think the NFL has it right. 2 years in college, it eliminates a lot of the other stuff potentially.
Yes, it does. And also what it does, and the major thing is the maturity of the individual here. You're getting a 19-year-old kid or 18-year-old kid fresh out of a situation where maybe he's had or had not, okay? And really right now you have maybe your maybe some in-house players come and talk to him or trying to steer him around and not to get into too many doggone problems. And then also what I see is, and this is what's important to me, a lot of the players and I'll use Andre Drummond as an example, okay, doesn't get the maturity level right and plays when he wants to play, okay? Not working on the skills and whatever it may be that makes you a professional NBA player. Some of the skills is just so insignificant. Shooting free throws, doing certain things, playing defense. These are things that are lacking with a lot of these kids who are coming into the professional level. And I'm not saying so much in hockey, and I'm not saying so much in football, but definitely in basketball, it shows up tremendously there, where this particular kid comes in the rough and just doesn't get it. They may give you a string of maybe 2 or 3 games in a row where they really show their rear end off and everyone's happy. But when the season grinds down to that no, not one, when you're doing 82 games a year, seems like that kid loses interest and just does enough to get by. And sometimes getting by means, or not, that team end up losing because that particular individual that they trusted so hard on doesn't give the effort that they're capable of doing or capable of seeing in a practice. So they gotta get that together. And furthermore, right now, again, the biggest key is right now is those colleges start being a little bit more selective on who they bring to college there. And I don't mean that they're just getting over the board with a C minus and take a test and some tutor gets a hold to them just to get by for just the period of time until the draft comes up and they're able to declare themselves eligible for the draft. I see a lot of kids this year not going out and getting agents. However, it doesn't stop them from participating in the draft and thinking that someone's going to really pick them up and give them the heavy hitters there. And hopefully the NBA watches that, and some of these kids are not going to get drafted like they think they are. And that may run them back to college there and get that maybe 1 or 2 more years worth of grind and experience there. And hopefully respecting the coach a lot more and doing what they have to do in order to make themselves more marketable when they are drafted. But right now, we're seeing a lot of kids coming out of college, especially in the college collegiate rank of basketball, not ready for professional basketball in general there. And again, it's shown on the floor. Again, they don't want the attitude. And Luke Kennard is another one that we looked at that we thought a lot more higher it. But again, you have a coach like Stan Van Gundy who's not putting these kids pedal to the metal. And that one I'll take a pass. You look at a player like Henry Ellison, okay, who should be playing a lot more effective than some of the players that have played for the Detroit Pistons. And that includes Mr. Tolliver, okay? Not giving that young man the opportunity that he's deserved. And he should be getting as a high draft choice he was. I do believe he was an 8th or 7th round pick. It doesn't make any sense, okay? And it definitely messes up the kid's mind where they don't put out that effort there. So again, some things got to be changed for the best interest of the players in general here.
Great topic, Butch. We have time for one more topic here on the game, and I want to have both of us take our journalist, our broadcaster hat off for a second. Butch, you and I are both Detroit sports fans, and of course the Pistons and Red Wings aren't participating in this year's playoffs. So my question to you is, Butch, who are you rooting for in the NHL playoffs, and who are you rooting for in the NBA playoffs? Maybe it's one team, maybe it's a couple teams, maybe it's 3 teams, but who are the teams that you're kind of pulling for to have some success this postseason?
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, it will be Las Vegas in the Western Division. I'm definitely pulling for them. If not, Winnipeg. Those 2 teams look very exciting. I think the Western Final is going to come down between those particulars there. But again, it may not take that long. For the East, I think I would be a fool not to pull for the Washington Capitals. This is a team that's been monumental, a very good team for now like 8 or 9 years, and haven't got out the first round. And to see them come back this past Sunday and win a game in overtime, which they have not been very successful at, is a mind blower to me. Now they got to go on the road to Columbus and do it all in their building, which is going to be a challenge, but we're going to see how good this Washington team is for the regular season record that they have, that they can go in the visitors' joint and do some doggone damage here and move this series on where they go ahead on and do their thing and maybe get in the finals.
Yeah, Butch, I would agree pretty much with what you said. I'm definitely pulling for Winnipeg and Vegas in the West. That would be a fantastic final. It's really, I like both teams. I like Winnipeg. I love how the town and just the atmosphere in their arena, their head coach, of course, being on the show with Dave doesn't hurt, also being from Sioux, Ontario. So Winnipeg, Vegas pulling for in the West. In the East, I would like to see Toronto and Columbus both advance. I don't think either one will. So of the 4 teams left, I got to agree with you. I guess I got to go for the Capitals, although my heart is more with the Western teams. In the NBA, there's a couple teams I would like to see do well. I'd like to see Milwaukee do well. I like their team. I mean, I can never pronounce his name, but the Greek guy is just fun to watch. Out West, I don't know. I mean, Utah, they're kind of a team that's quiet over there. Minnesota, although I don't think they're going to get past Houston. NBA, I don't really have a lot of teams. I don't want to see Cleveland and Golden State again this year. That we've seen that story too much. So I guess the NBA, I'm just not as excited about one team. But in the NHL, I'm really pulling for Winnipeg and Las Vegas. Any teams in the NBA that you're following that you like to see do well, Butch?
Well, I like to see Houston get in there for the finals there. I think they deserve it. They've shown everybody they're the best team in the league here. They don't seem like the best team right now in the playoffs per se there. Maybe they're just getting their wings worn up, or maybe just needed a lot more rest or relaxation there. But again, I like to see Houston in the West and the East. Oh boy, that's going to be pretty doggone tough. But I do like Toronto. I like Toronto very much. I would like to see the Raptors go to the finals there. I think that will be something that the NBA could embrace for a very long time, to see a team, especially from up north, come down and play some doggone heady basketball. They've been one of the better teams all year long, and you would hate to see them get flopped out. And I forgot, in the National Hockey League there, watch out for a team called Nashville. They have not warmed up yet here, but again, that could be the team that spoils everything for Las Vegas there.
Yeah, a team that won the NHL's President's Trophy there, and definitely a team that is one to watch out for. Butch, let's get to our thumbs up and thumbs down for the week, and I have one thumbs up and thumbs down, and it's going to be for the same event. After yesterday's big win by Milwaukee over Boston, their star player, I gotta take a break to try to pronounce this name, Giannis Antetokounmpo. I just have so much trouble with that. You know who I'm talking about. He scored 27 points, had the game-winning shot against the Celtics, and after the game, he went out to try to get a post-game meal at a local restaurant, a local Mexican restaurant, who was very busy after the game, and apparently he couldn't even get seated, as this restaurant did not have a seat for Mr. Giannis A, and we'll just leave it at that right now. And so that's my thumbs down. I mean, come on, guys. You got to let him in. This is a guy that got you tied in the series, a guy that obviously is very well known. But my thumbs up is to Mr. Giannis A and his reaction to this event. He said, "It's all good. Much love for you guys. Thanks to all the concerned fans. I appreciate your support. I really like this guy. I think he's a great story in the NBA. And you got to seat him, though. If he's coming to a restaurant after hitting the game-winning shot, you got to give him a seat. I mean, come on. I'm sure there's many Bucks fans that would have gotten up, and they should have gotten up to give Mr. Giannis a seat. And as the Milwaukee Bucks tied the series against Boston. Butch, your thumbs up and thumbs down for the week, sir.
Well, that thumbs down, I match you completely on that. When I heard about that yesterday, that was just totally ironic there as it stand there. And you know what? The state of Wisconsin has had those particular shavings like that before when it comes down to minority players or players who does very well and do the best they possibly can of feeding the community any way they possibly can. And it only takes one place of business or something who just screws it up for everybody concerned. That restaurant should be closed down by tomorrow here, never to open up ever again. And if the public is right on with that, they don't take their rear end to the doggone restaurant either for treating that man the way they did. They could have found somewhere where that man could have had a seat, or basically gave him a seat at the door and said, "You know what? We don't have a seat for you, my friend, but what can we get you so we can take it on out here? And we'll, and hey, how about a cold beer or something to go with you while you wait here,
Exactly.
Something of that particular there would have, hit the spot, but none of that from what I read and what I looked at was never done there. So bad boo-hoo for that restaurant over there. Hopefully no one goes back there ever again, which we know some people will. Let's say thumbs up for some of the young kids on the Detroit Tigers this past week here who didn't sit down and rubbed their nose in dirt. They could have easily went on the downstroke, but they did come out of there this week with a 4-3 record per se, and a pretty good doggone homestand to boot. A lot of that has to do with maybe players not being injured per se, but again, those back-to-back double headers and whatever it may be does take a toll on you where you're calling up and bringing in extra personnel and whatnot. Hopefully, again, these young kids can mesh together, bond together, and be a better source of teammates where they can win more games. But you got to give it to them this week. That I looked at the batting average from last week. Batting averages went up tremendously since a week of talking about them like a dog there. So let's give those kids the Detroit Tigers a thumbs up there.
Butch Davis joining us on the game. You can find more of Butch in a couple places. You can find him on his podcast page, Simply Butch 2, that's TOO.podomatic.com, or you can go to the podcast page of this show, thegamesportshow.podbean.com. There we put up all of Butch's broadcasts. You can also find him on Facebook. Butch, what do you have in store this week for Butch on Sports?
We had only one broadcast last week because, and you guys fill in the blank.
Birthday.
Yeah, right. And the weekend, too. Long one, very much so, very long.
Same here.
We'll be back in business this week here, keeping up with a lot of the good stuff, such as these playoffs that are going on, and also the NFL draft. And we will be late Friday morning, Thursday night, Friday morning. I'll do it from the Lions compound in Allen Park, and we'll do the show there and see what we get. And hopefully we get some noise from the first-round draft pick.
Butch, thanks for joining us tonight on the game, and we'll be back next Monday night for another edition, and we will talk to you then, sir.
All right, I'll be waiting.
We look forward to that, Butch. I want to thank Butch and Dave McKeag for joining us here on the game. Don't forget, you can hear more of the Game Sports Show from Dave on his broadcast Wednesday night at Sports Center Bar and Grill, Thursday night at Boston Pizza, and you can hear Butch Davis and his show Butch on Sports all on the podcast page of this show, thegamesportshow.podbean.com. That's going to do it here from Sault Ste. Marie. We'll talk to you next Monday for another edition of the game here on Eagle 95.1.
Thanks for tuning into the game on Eagle 95.1. Tune in every Monday night at 6 for local sports talk on The Game from the Wicked Sister on Ashman in downtown Sault Ste. Marie. You can hear the full 2-hour broadcast of the game, including regional and national sports talk and guests on the podcast page, snason.podomatic.com.
Or you can find the link on our Eagle 95.1 Facebook page.
We now return you to your regularly scheduled program.
Eagle 95.1 WUPN Paradise, Sault Ste. Marie.